So I have chosen for the cover image this photo from 1962. Actually, intriguing, is there any differences between these chairs? So I am starting introducing what would be my talk about. When I was invited by Edda to this seminar, thank you Edda and Anu organizing this, I thought that it could be a chance, as it's not a conference or a seminar, that I could share the most recently discovered images about these Baltic exhibitions. And actually I have been researching this topic for let's say about 15 years, but the topic related only with the Baltic exhibitions. It's just a new topic for me a bit. So actually I will be speaking about the design exhibitions which are not that much related, as I said, with the artistic context, because they are coming from the industry field. That's a different topic, of course, having in mind the Soviet industry, full of paradoxes, full of propagandic aims, competition aims, and at the same time full of the shortages, different shortages. But looking from the perspective of the design field, still they are interesting to find the objects, names, designers, and the narratives behind. So this is the list of the exhibitions I will somehow show today, but few of them, they are listed out. So the first one is related with the Baltic poster exhibitions. Actually, the tradition which had the longest one, there were 9 exhibitions of poster designers, Baltic poster designers, organized during the Soviet period. And I am not going to show anything from this field, even there are really interesting things to analyze and to look at. But I am just included the logo. They had the special corporate identity created by Lithuanian poster artist Juozas Galkus, Baltic poster as a logo for the first exhibition. And the second, which is a bit listed out of the whole line, is the one which was mentioned by Maria. That's my topic for 15 years, the Baltic pavilions in London in 1968. So I will come to this exhibition at the end of the presentation. So just a shorter information about the institution which took care about all these exhibitions. From Lithuanian part, that was an institution which was established in the late 50s, and it was called with the long title and clumsy name. As you see, it's the long directorate of the exhibitions, and they organized all these Baltic and export exhibitions abroad. So all these Baltic exhibitions, they traveled all 3 capitals. Some of them they had started as tradition. It means that they were organized every 2 or 3 years regularly. Some of them happened just once, like that one related with the everything for children. And what was important for me, as I said, I am first of all always digging into the visual material, starting the research. So I am a great fan to find those detective stories behind every image. So for me that was very important, that I had a chance to research the private archives, first of all. So these slides, which are the photos which are not mentioned, so they come from the personal archives. And I'm glad I have a chance to share these images with you. And of course, I have checked also the Lithuanian Central State Archive. Also, I had a chance 2 years ago to visit Russian State Archive of Economy in Moscow. And I was trying to look also through Latvian and Estonian examples with the help of the friends. Some of you are sitting here in the audience. So just shortening what is this slide telling about. So it's continuing the discussion which started yesterday in the different panels, that these joint Baltic exhibitions actually shaped certain traditions, and that the best example of such encouraged personal encounters is the creative friendship between Lithuanian architect and designer Tadas Baginskas, who celebrated 86th anniversary 1 month ago, and this is the recent photo from my last visit to his house. And his friendship was with Estonian renowned artist Velo Asi. So every time I call Baginskas or I visit him, he's always having different stories to tell. It takes usually a call, it's not less than 1 hour, usually it's 2 hours or 3 hours if I am visiting, so the last visit took 5 hours of listening to his talks. But usually a part is dedicated to Estonian friendship with Velo Asi, remembering some interesting parts. And I am glad that today we have Andres and Kai in the audience. So the first interview, as well as I remember, was with Andres, with Tadas Baginskas, and the initiative was during the event organized by Lolita in 2011, the modernization conference, and we had the long interview in Russian with Tadas Baginskas telling us these facts about the friendship with Lithuanian, Estonian designers. But for many, many years I was looking for that information. There were no photo, they could be photographed together. I mean, he had just his, or no archival photos could be that I could find them together. And just actually after my last visit in Tallinn 2 years ago, I had connected with one interior design master student from EKA, and we get in touch, and we had long interviews about Velo Asi and Tadas Baginskas, and recently she found this photo from his personal archive. Actually, that's a huge discovery, and Baginskas was very, very lucky. He asked me to make a big photo, and he would hang in his room. So this is the short introduction, saying that this was a really important encounter which happened in 1962 in Vilnius first. And actually this tradition and this very first exhibition dedicated to furniture design was very important for them. They were very young, promising architects and furniture designers. And in the first exhibition they tried to do a lot of new things showed. So it's a pity that there are only few photos which could be shown at the moment, which I could find from this particular exhibition. And talking about, as the panel is exhibiting identities and imaginations, so I thought that, of course, the first narrative or the first identity which comes looking at these photos is about the pro-Scandinavian or Scandinavian tradition. So here I would like to quote one of his colleagues saying what does it mean for them to be Scandinavian-oriented. So actually, they said that from the very first beginning, they were trying to follow this pro-Scandinavian design direction, which they followed and tried to implement from the very beginning, remained as a guiding start for the long time. This is actually, I'm quoting one interview by the colleague of Tadas Baginskas, Eugenijus Guzas. So he was saying that in all the union exhibitions, ours, it means Lithuanian and Estonian furniture, really stood out, including both the products themselves and their expositions. So they often received high awards, although the aesthetic simple shaped sets, without any superficial decor, seemed too humble to the Moscow exhibition attendees. So later on, I could also comment some on, but the photo which I included, because Baginskas has a lot of memories about this particular exhibition, he even remembers every detail, how Estonian stand look like, how Latvian and how Lithuanian, and he is telling the story, but it was not allowed to show his first vision. He wanted to include the original, authentic folk art examples in the exhibition, but he was asked from the Communist Party members to remove these items, like the folk sculptures. They looked too religious and too saint. So another exhibition, actually, I wanted to share the images from. They are related from food industry exhibitions. That's, of course, the different topic. But this is talking about the identities and the imaginations. So, of course, they are telling the story about the imagined Soviet West. First of all, through those logos which greeted every symbol. So this is the story which actually I started during my PhD studies. I have been studying and researching Lithuanian graphic design, so it's interesting that we have chosen the very Western-looking tendencies for these food industry shows. We can imagine that no visitor could recognize the brand from the Soviet period. It doesn't matter, there was such a shortage of products, but still in the exhibitions we tried to look it very internationally Western-oriented. Another exhibitional detail I wanted to outline is the traveling symbols, which were traveling from Vilnius to Riga and to Tallinn and sometimes to Moscow. So this is the decorative detail by one Lithuanian famous sculptor and painter at the same time, artist whose name is Theodoras Kazimieras Valaitis. His name was also repeated yesterday. And he was famous for many projects done for the export shows, but it's interesting that this son was also traveling in all the exhibitions in Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius. So it is like a quote or a link to the famous Lithuanian interior examples from the 60s. So first of all, this son was done for the famous restaurant called Dainava from the early 60s. It doesn't remain anything, everything was destroyed later, but this image was traveling in these exhibitions. And actually the interior design project was done together with another Lithuanian name, Eugenijus Cukermanas, who is actually part of the exhibition Thinking Pictures. The other tendency which I wanted to say that, of course, these exhibitions, the exhibitions I showed before, they were in the completely non-artistic spaces. They were organized somewhere outside the cities. And here, the exhibition which I will show later on, so this is the spaces of the Contemporary Art Center nowadays, and the exhibition dedicated to fashion design, Baltic fashion exhibition, which was designed by Eugenijus Antanas Cukermanas. And when I asked him, he said that was just a commission, the very short time he had, but he did really interesting decisions where. Most of the exhibitions had the special poster design done especially for these shows, and some of them, they are really interesting. For example, these ones by Lithuanian graphic artist Arvydas Každailis. And all these exhibitions had their own stands, as I said, but of course they were trying to, in some spaces they have like the dialogue with the special space, with the building, for example. In this case, that was the very interesting decisions made by Cukermanas. As the time is running, so I am just showing to show the images I discovered just recently, that strange exhibition, Everything for Children. And actually, I was also visiting the architect, Lithuanian architect, who designed this exhibition. He said that it was a unique chance for him as an exhibition designer. We see some tradition of a la Werner Panton in his exhibition design he has chosen for this particular show. And coming to this, as I said, more mostly, and the very known exhibition for me personally. So this is the export exhibition in London, which happened in 1968. And it was not the unified Baltic pavilion. There were 3 different pavilions. And the first slide I'm showing is related with the fashion design, because the fashion design was the unifying chain in this particular show, because they were showing these new models together. That was the Baltic show. And actually, where I borrowed the title that is better from the Baltic, it's the controversial title which actually appeared in, I found it in the Moscow archive, and of course I liked it because it again stressed that they were occupied, and these 5 girls coming from the Baltic. Of course, the commentary was a bit sexist, and they were saying that they have better figures and they are better looking than the Russian girls, but in general that was the notion which came also from the architects. Particularly, I could quote and could comment the memories from Tadas Baginskas that they were better designed pavilions in general. We don't have time, and actually that's not the seminar dedicated to one particular pavilion, so I'm just showing shortly why this particular pavilion was important for Lithuania. That was really very interestingly done, comparing all those international and national themes together, merging them and showing different topics, and also especially for the special installation, kinetic stained glass installation created for this particular show. And the Latvian pavilion was designed by architect Straumanis, and that's an interesting case that in that particular London exhibition, the 2 female architects from Estonia were the authors of the pavilion, Eha Reitel and Kart Vogre. I am sorry, but I have only found the one picture by Eha Reitel. And the situation when they went to Moscow changed rapidly, that the Moscow architects moved the Baltic pavilion somewhere under the staircase. So actually, according to Baginskas, the 2 Estonian architects started crying, and they called Veloasi to come and to help with the exhibition. So this is how we have 3 Baltic designers, 3 Baltic architects who met in London, and this is my newly photo discovered due to the friendship with Estonian Marilyn T. So she discovered in the private archive of Veloasi this beautiful photo of 3 Baltic architects standing in front of the Elscourt building in London. In this particular, the only one photo, they are looking very optimistic, happy, satisfied, because that's the beginning of the exhibition. And they were lucky that everything went very well. They somehow did the really nicely designed pavilions. Why I am showing this particular exhibition in this particular seminar, because of course we are now all touched and all living from the 24th of February with different attitude towards our even common past. So this particular London pavilion was organized in 1968 in the month of August. It should last it, according to the plan, till 24th of August. But as we all know, on the night on 20th, the Soviet tanks invaded the Prague, And immediately the protests in front of the Else Court, in front of the Soviet exhibition, started gathering during the night and during the day. And actually everything was cancelled, the photographs were not made. And actually we see from the British Pathé documentary films the slogans which we are now seeing in our capitals, saying that please leave the Czechs alone. And actually these three Baltic architects were witnessing these protests for the first of their life. Of course, that was not expected, that was not programmed on the list of such exhibition, but that happened in that particular case. So even coming back to that better from the Baltics, of course, we have to acknowledge that this better pro-Scandinavian looking pavilions in such export exhibitions were very, how to say, pro-programmed from Moscow part. That was actually the very well-organized campaign which had the long tradition that shaped the myth of the Soviet West, a modern export image. So, of course, we are not lucky to say that we supported this by these well-done pavilions, but still they were feeling themselves that they were better, meaning that they had the tradition from the interwar period, they were better, feeling that they are different than the Moscow shows. And actually, as the last slide related to the Prague and Czech, the interesting discovery is when I was trying to look what was said and what could be found from the Czech magazines, which was really influential at that time, the magazine called Domov. So there is one number which was dedicated to the Baltic states, saying that, of course, in the field of decorative arts and design, they are the strongest, and the leading position goes to Estonia. And they compete all the time. And of course, this is not, there is not time to discuss, is it a typical flat by very famous twin brothers, Vytautas Nasvytis? Of course, it was not a typical flat, but still they were showing the most outstanding features. At the same interview, there is the very interesting interview with Bruno Tomberg, Estonian father of industrial design, which is called The Very Angry Estonian Man. He is expressing very openly his opinion towards national thoughts, also discussing the Lithuanian and Latvian things. And as a last slide, actually, I have chosen from the visitors' books, because there were such a visitors' books at these industry shows. And of course, they open again this competition between the two or the three Baltic countries, but at the same time, whom they liked better. Estonians are leading always in Lithuanian comments, but at the same time, of course, we do have to acknowledge that these exhibitions were full of liars. I mean, that was the imaginary, non-existing promise. I mean, and people were angry that it's not true what you are showing, etc., etc. So actually, it's again, that was one of the tasks what exhibition showed, and we could continue with many different things. Okay, so I am running out of time. I'm saying thanks to all of you for listening and also for encouraging all the time. Also from this encouragement came in many times from Estonian part, that I was invited or I was asked to be part of somewhere, and that actually was an impulse for me to continue this Baltic design research trip odyssey. So thanks to many of you, and yeah, I'm giving the floor to Maria.